Good morning, fourth graders. Today we are on page 253 of your student journal, page 253. And our objective today is, today I will convert decimals to fractions and plot on a number line. Okay, so let's look at that goal. So today I will convert decimals to fractions and plot on a number line. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary. We have decimal point. It's a symbol used to separate a whole number from fractional parts. So this is 0 and 34 hundredths. So what we said for the decimal, we don't say decimal and we don't say point. We say the word and. And you've heard me say that in the last few videos. We say and. So 0 and 34 hundredths. Now the first place value after the decimal is called the tenths. And then this is called the hundredths. So you saw when we said these in the past videos, we always say the last place value. So that's why it's 0 and 34 hundredths. Okay, convert means to change form without changing value. Okay, so we're going to change the way it looks, but we're not going to change how much it's worth or its value. And then plot to represent a value on a number line. So to put the dot on the number line where it belongs. Okay, so our steps today say we're going to say the decimal. They've also provided you with a place value chart to help you with that. We're going to convert the decimal to a fraction and then plot the fraction on the number line. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Here's my first one. Okay, and it says, what is 0 and 1/10 as a fraction? Okay, so friends, I know how to say this. If you're not sure how to say this, there's a few things you can do. We can remember that the decimal is the word and. That's how I say that. And then I always like to write my place values on top. So the first one after the decimal is called the tenths. So that's why it's 0 and 1/10. Now they also gave you this place value to help you, this place value chart, so 0.1. So I would say 0, and then remember that's the and, so 0 and 1, and then we read the last place value, so 0 and 1/10. Okay, so I don't need to worry about the 0, but 1/10 tells me that it's going to be 1/10. So the fraction and the decimal sound exactly the same. So 1/10, 1/10. Okay, now they want me to plot this. Well, here's my 0 and here's my 1, and this has been partitioned into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts, or the little ones, it looks like it's going to be partitioned into 100 parts. But because my denominator is 10, I'm going to use these ones. So that would be cutting it into tenths. And I know I don't need all of these written to plot that one, but, tenths, 9/10, and 1 is equivalent to 10/10. So 1/10 goes right there. Okay, let's look at my next one. My next one says, what is 0 and 45 hundredths as a fraction? So again, if they didn't give me this, I know that I say and for the decimal, and then I know that's the tenths and the hundredths. So that's something you just kind of have to memorize as your place values. So it's 0 and 45 hundredths, because I say the last place value. Now since they gave me this though, I could put it in here and it's going to be the same. So it's 0 and 45 hundredths. So the last place value is the place value you say. Okay, so if I say that 45 hundredths, then I hear what the fraction should be. 45 hundredths, because again, they sound exactly the same. They look different, but they sound the same and they have the same value. Okay, since this time my denominator is 100, I'm going to be using the 100 parts, which I'm not going to mark all of them. That would take so long, but I know that here this has been partitioned into 10, so that's 10 100ths. That's 20 100ths. That would be 30 100ths, 40 100ths, 50 100ths, 60 100ths, 70 100ths, 80 100ths, 90 100ths, and again, 1 is equivalent to 100 over 100, because the numerator and the denominator, when they're the same, is always 1. Okay, so 45 100ths is going to be between 40 and 50, so I could count that's 41, 42, 43, 44, and that is exactly right there in the middle where 45 100ths would be. Okay, friends, let's try some of these together. We're on page 254, and here's our first problem. And it says, what is this as a fraction? So I'm not going to tell it to you. Let's work on it together. Well, how would we say that? What do we know? Well, we know the decimal. We're going to say the word and. And then what place value is first after the decimal? The tenths. And friends, I want you to write that with me. So how would he say this? 0 and 2 tenths. Let's say that again. 0 and 2 tenths. Okay, now they did give us this, but I don't want us to rely on that too much. So it's 0 and 2 tenths. So it's that last place value we say. Okay, so how do we write 2 tenths as a fraction? We write 2 tenths. Okay, so now we're going to fill in our place value chart. Our number line. So we have 0 and 1. And because we're counting by tenths, we're going to use our large one. So that's 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths, and then 1 is equal or equivalent to 10 tenths. Okay, so 2 tenths is right here on our number line. Okay, always remember you could pause the video if you need to get your page caught up if I went too fast for you. All right, let's look at our next one. It says, what is this as a fraction? So what is that? Okay, well, let's do it. Our decimal is, we say and then the 3 is in the tenths place, and the 8 is in the hundredths place. Okay, so how do we say this then? We say 0 and 38 hundredths. And if we use this to help us, we would see the same thing. 0 and 38 hundredths, because we say that last place value. Okay, so when you hear 38 hundredths, then you can write it as a decimal, 38 hundredths. Okay, so that means that we are now counting by hundredths. So we're going to be counting by these tiny, tiny ones, which are too small to mark. So we're just going to do 10 at a time. So that would be 10 100ths, because there's 10 parts there out of the 100. That would be 20 100ths, 30 100ths, 40 100ths, 50 100ths, 60 100ths, 70 100ths, 80 100ths, 90 100ths, and then 1 is equivalent to 100 100ths. All right, so 38 is more than 30 but less than 40. So it's going to be in here, we'd say 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38 is going to be right there on that line. Okay, boys and girls, practice being able to say these decimals correctly. Make sure that you check the denominator to decide where you are going to, or how you're going to partition your number line. Have a wonderful day. Bye.